They've been running road course for the last 2 weeks. However, they're not done with the technicalities just yet because we're not on an oval tonight. We are at a triangle, the Tricky Triangle, located in the Pocono Mountains in Pennsylvania. The Northwest Cup Series, presented by Tom Denchel Auto Group, pays their annual visit to the 2.5-mile Tricky Triangle Pocono Raceway here in Long Pod, Pennsylvania. Hi, everybody. I'm Greg Rentz here live on LSRTV for the Northwest Cup Series, presented by Tom Denchel Auto Group. Joining me in the booth tonight is Samuel Dyer. And Sam, this is a very unique racetrack, one-of-a-kind racetrack, because, like it says so famously on the wall, what turn 4? This is only a 3-corner racetrack.
Yeah, 3 corners, completely different. All of them are in extremely long stretches to have the ability to use the draft. And honestly, tonight is going to be a rhythm for a lot of these drivers. How can you get into a rhythm entering each corner and protect those tires, as this course is only going to be about 80 laps for these drivers to attack? So, when we were at 1.5-mile courses, 80 laps doesn't seem like very long, but for these guys, each lap almost a minute in length for just 3 corners.
Yeah, just about a minute in length. So you're thinking, 80 laps, this is going to go quickly. This is a long racetrack, 2.5 miles, 3 very unique turns, by the way, because no corner is like the other one. This track modeled after 3 very famous race courses in American history. We've got turn number 1, the Milwaukee corner, turn number 2, the Indianapolis corner, and turn number 3, the Trenton corner. I may have turn 1 and 3 confused and mixed up, but I know turn 2 is definitely the Indy corner because it's a 90-degree corner. Sam, only 2 racetracks have a 90-degree corner. This is one of them, again, modeled after Indianapolis, but such a historic racetrack. So many historic moments have happened at this racetrack, and yes, it's a 2.5-mile track. Yes, it drives like a road course, so a lot of guys might not be thinking this is going to be a traditional race, but a lot of guys love this racetrack, and that could be because of the high speeds you're going to see, especially going down into turn number 1.
Yeah, and turn 1, really, on the restarts and starts, you're going to be seeing a lot of drivers trying to gain as many positions as possible. We're going to be seeing guys on restarts trying to force it to go 2, 3, sometimes even 4 wide going into turn number 1 and trying to figure out how to space each other out in a corner that kind of funnels you on the entry and funnels you coming out the exit. It is a very tricky spot on where drivers could be bringing out a lot of cautions if not careful, and kind of similar to also turn 2, tunnel turn. That corner is going to be another spot where these drivers have to focus on making sure they don't overdrive that corner, even though kind of the goal tonight is try to keep the momentum up and really go as fast as possible.
Yeah, you got to keep your momentum going. This is very, very much a rhythm racetrack. You got to get yourself in a rhythm. This is a track, Sam, that is very unique in the aspect of you have an option of how you drive the track. By that, I mean shifting. Some drivers prefer to do it. Some drivers don't. It's a matter of driving style. So that'll be something else we have to monitor throughout the course of the race. What drivers are shifting versus what drivers are not. Just one of the many things that plays into this racetrack.
Yeah, shifting down, that's one of the factors of going through turn 3 that these drivers are going to have to really debate on that, because going through turn 3, you can find yourselves bogging down to 130 to 120 miles per hour at times, and sometimes you want to shift down just to get a better launch out of the corners. But if it kind of is a double-sided coin on the fact that in one side you're going to be having that speed you can get off, but on the other side you can be burning off your tires by putting so much more attention into getting off the corners as fast as possible.
And Sam, I'm not sure how the weather has been where you are, but here in the Northwest, where many of these drivers are based, it was a record-setting day, and I don't mean that in a cool way. I mean many areas in the Northwest, including right where I am in Spokane, set their all-time record for the date here of record-high temperatures. In fact, Seattle broke their all-time record today for heat by quite a few degrees, so it's been a hot one. So a lot of drivers tempers might be a little bit shorter than what we've seen in the past because of that heat. Speaking of heat, let's take a look at what the weather's doing here tonight at Pocono Speedway. The saw-blade weather here at the Pocono Raceway, and as you can see, it's a cool, crisp 73 degrees here ambient, but it's a very hot racing surface, 114-degree track temperature. That is just a little bit over what it hit in central Washington today. Tomorrow, we will see the all-time state record for Washington State fall of 118 degrees. That will be broken tomorrow. So a lot of drivers might be a little bit frustrated spending the day out in the heat. Sam, what will that do? Yes, it's a virtual race, but you're still got your temper flaring after being out in the hot sun all day.
Yeah, I mean, even if the track surface was around 90 degrees, maybe even 80 degrees, this track is like a cheese grater at times because of how different the corners are. And entering turn 1, got to get a touch on the brakes. Turn 2, got to be letting off and carrying that momentum, which is heating up the tires even more. And also for turn 3, might be thinking about tapping the brakes every once in a while. So these tires going to be absolutely toasted by the end of tonight. But for qualifying, interesting, right when they opened for qualifying to be opened up for the drivers to go take the track, it actually went up a degree. So I think these drivers got to be concerned with qualifying going on. The track could be evolving for those that wait until the very last moment to hit the track.
They have 8 minutes to go in qualifying. The word has come in. They will advance the session and begin to grid up in 7 minutes and 10 seconds from now. That is when the session will advance. These drivers have 7 minutes to go out and nail a good lap. Noah Shawinski, Dan Lowther, Ryan Maines, Taylor Larson, James Thurston, your top 5 right now. 8 drivers have taken time so far of the 27 that are entered. So, Sam, any predictions as far as time-wise right now? You're seeing a 54.855 right now, the top of the board by Noah Shawinski for the Killer Bees out of Oregon. So is that around what you're expecting to see, or do you think we'll be able to drop it down into the 7s and perhaps even a little bit lower?
I think 7s and 6 might be where we might be seeing some of our fastest guys, like Dan West Jr., also Lake Peterson. Those guys were extremely quick during the first practice session these guys had. They actually had to switch up the session. That's why we're going to be skipping ahead and advancing. So some of the notes that we have of the current practice that these drivers had right before qualifying started, a little bit off pace from what we were expecting to see, but still, I think there's got a lot of speed to be grabbed for these guys that were extremely quick. And Dan West Jr., I think he's got to be the odds-on favorite for tonight's race.
Dan West Jr., the defending race winner. For reference, Stephen O'Hare, who's out on the track right now in the number 41 entry for Beaver State Racing, he was fastest in practice, 54.4. So he was tracking pretty low there. He was fastest in practice, and he's had speed all year, still searching for that first Cup victory, going through the tunnel turn right now, Indianapolis, that it's modeled after right now. But we're going to let them get things wrapped up here in qualifying. We're going to take a quick chance to thank a couple of our presenting sponsors here. When we come back, we may have the full grid. If not, we'll fill you in on what you missed here. Qualifying is underway, but we're going to take a quick moment to thank our sponsors that bring us the awesome action. And when we come back, we'll have racing for you here on LSRTV, your home for sim racing.
Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, right? Our Ram trucks, truck of the year, amazing trucks. We have fun Jeeps, and then the exciting Dodge. Performance there, lots of excitement there. They've done a great job in really creating a full scope product line that could suit everybody's needs. A vehicle or a utility type vehicle or a big truck. We've got it all for our customers.
Welcome back to Pocono, everyone, on a very, very, very warm Monday night here in the Northwest. The Northwest Cup Series presented by Tom Denchel Auto Group. 21 drivers have laid down a time here for this race. 4 left to set a time as it's now 23. Just waiting on Carl Burke, Corey Walters, Frank Harris, and Aaron Cooper to go out and try to set a qualifying time. 27 drivers in the field here tonight. 23 have set a time thus far. A new name up at the front, Kevin Smith, who was fast in practice. He was second in practice. Follows up his time with a 54.439. And we were talking during the commercial, Sam. He's shown a lot of speed over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Smith really taking advantage of the ARCA series that these guys run Friday nights. It's kind of a preview of what the next week is going to be showing for them. And for this 00, he's just been, a lot more track time has been helping him, as well as some of the other guys that run that series, like that of Dennis Moore and Ryan Bloom, and also that of James Vining. Those guys really are taking advantage of the ARCA series, and, having to figure out how to test their throttle control really does develop and move over to the trucks and for the Cup guys. And for Kevin Smith, he's been probably the biggest leap of all those drivers in translating the ARCA series over to these other big boy machines like the Cup car and the trucks.
So with that being said, here's a question for you here, Sam. You said it takes a little bit to get used to the throttle, and for our drivers that did not do the ARCA race, depending on how much practice they did, do you think the first 10, 15 laps of this might be still trying to get themselves comfortable, or do you think they've gotten enough time behind the wheel to go out and be able to go right off the gun here?
I know a lot of these guys have been spending a lot of time in practice throughout the day. I mean, that's what's one of the best things about this series, is that there are practice sessions that are up practically almost every day for these guys to get used to these tracks. And for those that really didn't utilize that time of practice to get used to and get ready, I think it will be probably the first 5 to 10 laps that you're going to learn real quick if you needed more time or not. Because if you mess up driving a little bit too aggressive into these corners in the first 2 to 3 laps, you were going to be extremely off pace and just praying for a caution to come out so you get a fresh set of tires, which even for this course, you don't have a lot of tires to really work with. You've got 4 sets, 1 you start out with, 3 in pit road. So you've got to be constantly thinking of how to conserve your tire wear so you're not brutalizing them throughout the race.
Here's another way you can do it. Drafting. That can help with the tire wear and with the fuel mileage. It's something else that comes into play a lot here at Pocono. We're about 30 seconds away from qualifying expiring. Looks like those 23 drivers are going to be the ones that qualify. Carl Burke, Corey Walters, Frank Harris, and Aaron Cooper all just sitting there on pit road. No sign of them coming out. So looks like Kevin Smith going to lock up that pole here tonight and leading the green here at Pocono. So we're about 10 seconds away. And time will expire right there. And it has advanced. It is official. Kevin Smith will have the pole. And Sam, it is time to go down to the grid because we are ready to turn them loose for 80 laps.
80 laps of great Pocono action. And it is going to be an exciting one. These drivers really got to be staying focused here, Greg. And I'm excited to see how these guys attack corner number 1 just right off the rip.
All right, let's take it down and meet the field here for the Team 126 starting lineup. And looks like we're having a little bit of technical difficulties there with the grid because it's showing Aaron Cooper on the pole. That is incorrect. Kevin Smith will lead in the green. We'll just go ahead and read off the starting grid here for this one. Kevin Smith will lead in the green with Blake Peterson, who leads the series and wins right now with 4 on the outside pole. Dan West Jr. in 3rd. Jeff Stabnow 4th. He led the most laps in this race last year, Sam, so watch for him to make a move. Dennis Moore and Sean Breitzman dominating the road courses last couple of weeks. Looking for a win here at Pocono as well. Starts 6th. Stephen O'Hare, Tyler King, teammates for Beaver State Racing, along with Dennis Moore. All 3 of them in the top 10 tonight. Devin West, the son of Dan West Jr., and Troy Daggett, his best qualifying effort of the season, starts 10th.
And And then in 11th place, we're going to be finding that of Noah Sherwensky, as well as that of James Vining, going to be in 11th and 12th. Then the next row behind them is going to be that of Dan Lowther, who's going to be in 13th, with Ryan Maines going to be in 14th. John Ottenbacher and Chris White going to be 15th and 16th. Ryan Bloom, Stephen Paulison going to be in 17th and 18th, with that of Taylor Lawrence going to be in 19th, with James Thornton, who's going to be in 20th.
Rounding out this 27-car field will be Brian Reynolds in the number 12. He's had some strong runs in the 12, so watch for him to try to make moves up through the field. Judd Wakefield, the number 22, in position number 22 in the number 50. Casey Tillman was the final car to qualify. He was on the poster for this race. Drivers starting on provisionals will be Corey Walters, Frank Harris, Aaron Cooper, and Carl Burke will start shotgun on the 27-car field that is rolling now towards turn number 1.
Looking at those drivers that did not even put down a time, I'm looking at Carl Burke. I'm really interested on how the 53 car is going to march his way through the field. He's been one of those drivers that late in a run just shows up in our top 15. Interested to see if he'll find a way to save his tires and finish up in the top 10, but it looks like he is not gridded up. So the 53, if he does show up, he'll have to start in pit road.
Field coming down to complete their one pace lap behind the iRacing sedan pace car. Kevin Smith in the number 00 will lead him to green, but he's got tough competition behind him. He's got Lake Peterson, who leads the series and wins. Dan West Jr., who won this race last year, was a Final Four driver in the Truck Series, won the championship there. Always a threat in the Cup Series. Jeff Stabnow, Sean Breitzman's back there in the number 46. We got Beaver State Racing, Devin West up there. Plenty of drivers to contend with, and they're all going to be chasing the 00 of Kevin Smith, who we talked about it ever since that ARCA series came about. It has been a complete 180 for Kevin Smith.
It really has. And for Kevin Smith, his goal, get a great launch, get himself away from the field, because it is going to be chaos coming to turn number 1.
They are behind the sedan, which pulls in. Field in the hands of Kevin Smith. We are coming to a green flag. 80 laps at Pocono is underway. Drag race down towards turn number 1. Taking a peek low in the early stages. That is Stephen O'Hare, who's fastest in practice. He's going to try the dive bomb there in the turn number 1, the first heavy braking zone of the day. Looks like they all get through, but they're fanning out 3-4 wide behind them.
Breitzman's almost fell back into a 4 wide trap, and right now up front it's Kevin Smith, who's doing a great job side by side for second place, though. Lake Peterson, Dan West Jr., you want to get yourself really single file out coming into turn number 2. Got to watch out for those drivers back in 5th and 6th, as it's going to get real narrow really quick.
Top 4 beginning to break away. None of the spot on the track right now is back there between Tyler King, Stephen O'Hare, Devin West, and Noah Sherwinski, the teammate to Lake Peterson. They were almost 4 wide there for a minute. They've since settled down to 2x2. Off of turn number 3, coming to complete lap number 1. Give it to Kevin Smith in car number 00, but you can see the Hornets' Nest back here as they battle out. This going on right around the 10th position right now. Fantastic stuff in the early stages. Troy Daggett in the 51 up there had his career best starting effort, his first top 10 qualifying effort. He's in that blue and black 51, sitting in 9th right now, trying to make it worth it. His teammate Dan Lowther behind him in 14th.
They're slicing and dicing, and up front it's going to be Lake Peterson, who is trying to make it clear side by side going into turn number 2 as they're battling up front for the lead. Do want to give note, John Ottenbacher probably had the save of the day early in the race, but oh no, into the walls. Kevin Smith coming out 2.
The good news is he has a patch repair. The bad news is he's going to have to use it on the first pit stop, as this is such an aero-sensitive track. You're going to want that clean car as much as possible. Off turn number 3 for the second time, and it is Lake Peterson leading the way. 4 wins on the season, looking to make it 5 here tonight. But Stabnow and West behind him. Here comes West to the inside.
teammates going to be able to help one another out. I mean, I'm looking at Dan West Jr. looking so confident making that pass, just showing the power of the draft, coming down the front stretch and an easy pass through 1 and 2. And now Sean Breitzman, he's back in 5th. He's side by side and trying to figure out how to get by that of Kevin Smith. Smith, even with that brush to the outside wall, he's trying to stay in the top 5 the best that he can. This 00 though, once we get about another couple laps in, his stab now, he brushes off the wall.
Things beginning to settle down a little bit, but the driver's still pinging off the wall just a little bit. Dan West Jr. out in front now. Won this race last year from the 5th starting position. He started 3rd this evening. See if he can pick it up once again. Meanwhile, side by side now for 4th. Breitzman to the inside of Kevin Smith. Breitzman into turn number 1. Smith with a big run on the outside. They're still fanned out behind him. Tyler King starting to make some moves now. Into number 21. He's up a couple of spots as Beaver State Racing sits 6, 7, 8 right now. Troy Daggett, Noah Sherwinski rounding out the top 10 right now.
Tyler King, he's going to decide to go 3 wide into turn number 2 and somehow make that work for the 21. Also to give note, Dan West Jr. bounced off the wall coming out of turn number 1, losing 2 positions. 55's got to be careful of that damage, but drivers are recognizing they can get a little bit aggressive here as the drivers early on in the first 3 laps. They burned off that rubber, and here comes the drivers that were saving.
Here comes Tyler King to 4th. That makes him the biggest mover of the race here, Sam. From 8th to 4th, plus 4 on the night as one car on the inside. I believe that's Peterson trying to fend off, so he will hang back to the lead here as West bounced off the wall, like he said. He is going to fall to 3rd spot, back where he started. Stabnow now up in the 2nd. Remember, both those cars have caught the wall. Lake Peterson has not. Tyler King up to 4th. A little bit of juggling going on for position a little deeper in the field, but nothing too noteworthy right now. They're side by side back there between Dan Lowther and Devin West for 12th. West able to clear on the outside. Oh, as now Ryan Maines was just talking about him. He caught the wall there in the tunnel turn, and this is going to allow Chris White, the number 83. He has a win this season as well, to come up and try to make a move. That's deeper in the field as you're watching right now. There it is. That's the battle there. White there on the outside. Got Lowther in that neon yellow Northwest Sugar entry behind you. Here comes Ryan Bloom, another one of those guys that we talked about, Sam. The ARCA series really paying off. We're talking about that 25 Monster Energy Ford.
Yeah, Bloom, he started in 17th, and he's just seeing a cluster of drivers that he could possibly try to get by. But the biggest obstacle for Bloom has been tire wear and how to save it for the 25 Monster Energy machine as he just moves up. And I think for a lot of these drivers, we saw it early in those first 3 laps, drivers just getting a little bit too aggressive and bouncing off the wall. And we touched on it. You want to try to keep the momentum, which means you got to risk the car floating up to the wall. But once you get more and more tire wear, the more the car just wants to tighten up on you, and the wall just seems to suck onto these cars.
And with only one fast repair, you've got to try to keep it. You got to try to keep it off the wall as much as you can. Unfortunately, that's the easier said than done here. I mean, look at Kevin Smith, the pole sitter. He has fallen back to 8th after showing a lot of speed in the early stages, but he was the first one to hit the wall. We got 3 wide back there, deep in the field. The Catman's down there on the inside. Let's see who else we got back there. Ryan Bloom is there. Stephen Paulson, the Daytona winner, and Ryan Maines. They were 3 wide there for a minute going into turn number 1. That's back for 14th, 15th, and 16th.
Yeah, right now I'm really keeping my eyes out on the 98 machine. Taylor's doing everything in their power to try to sneak by, get aggressive, and with these groups being in these little small packs and pockets of air, it's giving these drivers some chances to try to utilize the draft to push to make some passes forward. Certainly up front, our front 3, they're trying to pull away from one another the best that they can. But I got to give huge props to one of the drivers that's been making some of the biggest moves. Tyler King, not afraid to make passes up front.
He's going for 2nd right now on Jeff Stabnow in that number 21. And by the way, Sam, he's still looking for that first career series victory. Northwest Racing Series victory, not Cup Series, not Truck Series. His first overall win in the series. He sits 3rd now, getting around Sean Breitzman. Dan West Jr., who led a couple laps, he's fallen back to fifth now into the clutches of Noah Shawinski, who's beginning to mount a little bit of a charge up. He is now up to sixth after starting 11th.
Shawinski really showed a lot of pace last week when we were at Sebring and had a couple of mistakes under pit road, as well as just overshooting some corners that cost him a great finish for the 96. But for Noah, I'm excited to see what he can really tackle here at the Tricky Triangle. Up to sixth place for himself and doing a great job moving forward, starting in 11th, and he is slowly marching his way forward.
Sam, I want you to take note of what the race leader, Blake Peterson, is doing. Let's see if we can pick him up. We're on board right now with Jeff Stabnow. We'll stick with this for now as Tyler King is going to move to second. But I want to watch what he's doing off of turn number 3. Just came off turn number 1 right now. And here you see it right there. Look at him break the draft right there. I've noticed him mainly doing it off of turn number 3, but he just did it there off turn number 1. Breaking that draft. We talked about that a moment ago. It's about breaking out for a second. Again, Stabnow trying to cross King back over. But I love what Peterson is doing there. Breaking the draft to where these guys cannot mount a run. This camera right here will tell that story. If we can see the 09 coming off of turn number 3, Stabnow's going to clear King. Now watch him. Gets it right up to the wall, and then right up out there, he just shoots down to the bottom. So even though they're so far back, they still can't catch a draft off of him.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, Blake Peterson is so far back that they aren't even getting a nip of that draft help anymore. And I think the key right now is the fact that they have been battling so hard. Tyler King finally can confirm that second place position, and Stabnow has to relinquish it. But it certainly is a lot of time for these drivers to now get in line, try to catch up to Blake Peterson, because they've already used up all of that hard work to try to get by one another. But that gave all the time to Blake Peterson. He went from being just, 9/10 back to over a second and a half ahead of second place.
Let's take a look at here. We're looking out the back of Peterson. This is right here, turn 3. This is where we're going to see if he does it again. Yes, they're far back, and you see him battling back there again, but we'll see if he cuts down to the bottom. This time he sticks with it. I think he picked up on what you were saying there, Sam. Hey, I got a big enough lead, and they're still jockeying for position. I can kind of just focus on running my line right now, not worry about it for a little bit.
Yeah, and it's important to, at this point, when you know you are outside of that limit for them to even catch up to you with the draft, you don't want to be scrubbing off time by going back and forth, trying to snake as much as you'd like, because when you're just going straight, you're able to pick up more speed, not use too much friction to wear down your pace, and now we're seeing really that of third and fourth, trying to help one another, a little bit of bump drafting from that of Bryceman to Stabnow.
26 drivers took the green flag, 25 of them on the lead lap right now. Casey Tillman had to come down pit road in car number 92 for Caden Anderson Racing. He is 1 lap down after having to make a pit stop unscheduled. I believe he had to take a fast repair after they topped the wall, which seems to be common there with a lot of drivers. Now Tyler King beginning to open it up a little bit there over the teammates Stabnow and Breitzman. Noticing a little bit further in the pack, starting to see almost some 2-car tangos beginning to hook up here. Stabnow and Bryceman use it to their advantage as Stabnow's going to get back around King. The Beaver State Racing teammates to King, they were kind of hooked up there in a little bit of a 2-car tango, followed by the West family. They were hooked up as well. It's since spread out a little bit, but going down that very long 2,700-foot front stretch, they had a little bit of a 2-car tango, and looking back at them, we can see them beginning to form it up once again. We'll see if we can possibly pick up the West family team 55 and 5, because they're the ones that really are doing it right now. Chris White trying to suck up as well. He's going to get a run to the bottom here of Devin West in that number 83. Almost a Greg Biffle throwback there on the number 83, kind of similar to what Bruce Lee Weaver used to run. So he's going to break up West Family Racing for the time being. Noah Shawinski back there as well. There's a great example of the draft right there. You see Devin able to get right back to his father's back bumper with Chris White, no draft help whatsoever. He's going to be the big loser here. Shawinski's going to try to get by as well.
Yeah, I mean, the draft is so helpful down the straightaways, but we're starting to see it now, is even for that of Blake Peterson. He's able to pull away because he's not worrying about any dirty air. That fresh air is so useful to have, and we're starting to see some of these guys that are trying to do a 2-car tango is when they're trying to go enter these corners with how fast they're going, they're getting very tight, plowing through the center of the corner and off to where they are just losing ground. You even saw there that Devin West getting out of shape out of the corner, just trying to stay off of the outside wall, but it's so hard to keep the momentum going when you're just carrying too much speed for those tires to handle. Greg, just want to let you know, I think you might have pressed the wrong button, but as you are talking through iRacing Speak.
That's the problem when your iRacing button and your TeamSpeak button are right next to each other on your steering wheel. Fortunately, Ben is a spectator, so only Mr. Stabnow and Mr. Brightsman heard that.
Well, speaking of Bridesman, he got a lot of issues going on for our front as Stabnow and Bridesman. They are being hunted down as O'Hare is caught up, as well as that of Dennis Moore. What was once just a 3-car pack, it's now a 5-car pack to see who can be up there in second place. As still, Lake Peterson now up to a 3-second gap lead over the rest of the field.
This is good news for Tyler King, though, Sam, because now he's got a teammate there to help him out, where he was surrounded by teammates of Stabnow, Brightsman, and what's better than a teammate? How about 2 teammates? Stephen O'Hare's there as well.
Oh man, as we're on board with that of Tyler King, just getting a little bit of a sense. You could just look at how much that the offset is for these guys, not even having the steering wheel straight, having to steer to the left just slightly and then crank it just a little bit more for Tyler King to get through the tunnel turn.
O'Hare got a nice run there on Stab. Now he's going to get to the bottom. These two have a history, Sam. They've had a couple of run-ins last season, 41 and 24, and they were getting kind of fed up with each other by the end of it before finally having that big, the big finale. I think it was New Hampshire last year that they did. They're battling out for second right now. All clean and green so far, though.
I'm going to go take a look back and see what happened, but James Vining as well as Ryan Maines both have DNF'd and left the server of this race. I have no idea what happened to the 333 and the 13, but both are already out of this race.
Tough break for a couple drivers who have been showing some good promise lately. Vining and Maines out of the race early. Look at this. 6 cars now under a blanket for second.
Went back and rewatched. James Vining and both of Ryan Maines had issues on 2 separate corners. For Maines, it was coming through turn 3, and for Vining, it was coming out of turn number 2. Both drivers decided to just park it and say that they were done for the day, as Maines both of them, I believe they both had their fast repairs, but just decided, you know what, no caution came out for our incident, we're done.
Tough break, though, because that's the thing. It's very common at certain tracks, and this is one of them. If it doesn't happen on the racing surface, it doesn't trigger caution. Here's the thing. Pocono is kind of one of those tracks where it can kind of depend on where on the racetrack is the racing surface, as Bryson had to get out of the throttle. Moore was back there. He had to check up, which allowed Noah Shawinski to get past both of them up the middle.
Shawinski just went from driving hoping to stay inside of the top 10 to now into the top 5 in just 3 laps, showing that there is such a balance going on with these drivers. Sometimes for 3 laps you're trying to recover from being too aggressive for 3 laps, and it's constantly a 3-lap rotation of, are you moving forward or are you going back to save your tires? But for all these drivers, they've got to be concerned, when are they going to make their first green flag pit stop, as it's looking like the windows anywhere from lap 20 to that of lap 30 matters on how many sets of tires you really want to use here today.
2 laps away from that window right now, beginning to open, so drivers might be beginning to think about that right now. Seems to be single file now, no real battles going on the racetrack right now. Things settling down. Drivers getting into that rhythm that we talked about, and it's all happening 3.2 seconds behind Lake Peterson, who, when he's here in town with the Northwest Cup.
Oh no, Dan West Jr., Kevin Smith, contact made. That sent Dan West Jr. into pit road. Hard contact for the 55.
Defending race winner Dan West Jr. spins on the pit road. It didn't trigger caution, but we'll see if we've got a Pulse Poppers replay of that incident. And we do. Sam, you saw this one.
It was just both drivers looking for the same real estate. It looked like Kevin Smith just slightly came up. This is coming out of turn number 3 when the incident happens. And you're just seeing Kevin Smith coming with a head of steam. Both drivers have faded back from being up front. And Dan West Jr. had been up on the high line, just giving space, and contact made there. And the 55 just goes shooting to the inside.
Ooh, and that's a hard wall or hit to the wall there. So that is, without a doubt, a fast repair to the 55.
And just to add on to that, I mean, he's got to get the repairs done, and he's also going to have a drive-through penalty for coming in too fast, as up front still hard racing for the drivers that are in our top from second back to 6th place. They're all still on top of one another. Where's our leader? 3.3 seconds ahead of this pack.
So Heartbreak City for the defending race winner, Dan West Jr., still sitting on pit road right now. He may have gotten 2 penalties here, we're hearing. He may have gotten an unsafe pit entry and a speeding penalty. He's just now rolling in at number 55. He did use his fast repair. That's the good news. The bad news is he's going to be pinned a lap down. And the real kicker, Sam, he's not even in the lucky dog spot right now.
No, and with the timing of that contact and coming in with the damage, he thought, hey, why not just use my set now? So one of the 3 sets that are in pit road, the 55 has used. We'll see how much time he can gain up. I mean, right now he needs to gain over 23.5 seconds to that of Tillman if he wants to be the first car 1 lap down. So a lot of work for the 55 if he wants to get back in the mix of things.
By the way, Carl Berg did manage to make it out onto the track. He is 12 laps down right now at the bottom of the pylon. However, he's 6 laps away from gaining 2 spots. Maines and Vining both out of the race. Carl Berg has a chance to gain a couple points here if he can stay out there for 2 laps. So even though he's 12 laps down in the number 53, Sam, he can still gain as many points as he can with drivers falling out of the race.
Yeah, and you know, for a lot of these drivers, it's got to be get as many points as possible. The playoffs right around the corner. You want to get every point you can as Strawinski coming in with a 3 wide move. He got a little bit of a bump from the 44 that gave him the momentum to force this move. 3 wide into turn number 1.
This is going on for a spot in the top 5. Stab now going to try to use that outside lane as a run. This is for the final spot on the podium right now. Stab now is going to clear. 5-car battle for 3rd.
You're just seeing once one car can really get themselves into a rhythm like that of Stephen O'Hare. He's now over 8 tenths. He no longer has to worry about the drivers picking up his draft. He could just pull away. The battle for 3rd is now a 5-car battle, and you got Dennis Moore who's trying to make some moves, but also Tyler King getting into the wall, scrubbing more time off, and now side by side for those trying to figure out who's going to be in the top 5. Dennis Moore looks like he's there, but Tyler King, he's just getting right on the back bumper. Getting a little bit scary through turn 3 for some of these guys on how close they're getting to one another.
It has been a wild run so far. Still caution-free, though, as we're past the quarter way of this one. And we are in that window now, Sam, of green flag pit stops. 3 laps into the window, no takers yet. You said 20 to 30. We're on 23 now. What are you thinking now?
Yeah, I mean, it was really for those drivers that were thinking about pitting every 20 laps. Lap 20 would be that spot where you could do that, utilize all your tires and not have an extra set. For the drivers that are aiming to have an extra set here at the end, they're going to be trying to aim for around lap 26 to lap 30. For drivers that are really feeling like I need to do an undercut to possibly gain time on the drivers in front of me, they might be going for lap 25 for their pit stop. But still, it's up in the air on where these drivers feel the most comfortable. If they feel like, hey, I've been saving my tires to stretch it a little bit further, then they'll try to run until that fuel is out. For some other drivers, they might be just wanting some help tire wise. I think that Kevin Smith, he might be one of our first runners to come into pit road. He's got that right side damage. He's fallen all the way back to 18th, also with the contact that he's made with Dan West Jr. Kevin Smith, I could be seeing him as well as Ottenbacher. Again, looking at some of the drivers in the middle of the field, lap 1 out of turn number 2, Ottenbacher went from running in the middle of the pack to last place, and he has now climbed his way back up to 12th after some of the misfortunes of some other drivers.
So drivers right now, this race has been a race of comers and goers already, and not in the typical way you would expect it to, Sam. Normally when you say comers and goers, it's just guys who are making their way through the field and then they kind of just fall back here in the races. Here we go. Green flag pit stops underway. Sean Brightsman going to be the first one in.
This is right around that window of drivers that wanted to undercut and save an extra set just in case a late caution came out. So Sean Brightsman recognizing, hey, I'm about 4 seconds back from the leader. Come in. If I can somehow stay out for 5 laps before we see Lake Peterson come into pit road, he could have the lead in over a 3-second gap. That probably wouldn't last very long, but certainly the undercut. Why not try something different for that of the 46 who's already won a couple of times this season, and he's trying to make it 3 in a row. But right now up front, I mean, gotta say credit to Lake Peterson. He's up to a 5-second lead. He's just not slowing down.
Peterson is just so strong ever since joining the series. He made his debut in the season finale last year at Phoenix, was so strong there, led so many laps, and here he is joining it, not quite full time because he's missed a couple races, but when he's here, he is on it. 5.1 seconds ahead of the battle for second.
Second place still O'Hare, and then you've got side by side. That's Dennis Moore, Stabnow battling for third, and then you've also got Stabnow dropping back, trying to hold off for fourth place. Here comes Tyler King, and also that for Sherwinski. And man, this 96, it has been a weird start of the race for himself. Like I said, he started in 11th, moved up to 7th, dropped all the way back to 11th again, and then in the past about 10 laps has really started to climb up now into the top 5.
Trying to make his way up and catch his teammate who's leading the race right now. And we also watch Peterson. He will stay out another lap. We turn our attention back to that second group. No takers on pit road here up at the front of the field for now. Still no takers. So right now, Brightsman the only one. And Sam, Brightsman's one of those guys who is not afraid to go off sequence and try things. So could he possibly be setting himself up for a strategy move later?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if anything, this is going to be putting him in a spot where his final pit stop is going to be the longest stint of all of this. So he's going to be trying to push all the way out to lap 50 and then have to hold off the rest of the field for the final 30 laps and still have an extra set to work with just in case a scenario pops up of a late caution. Sean Brightsman, right when that window opened for him to have an extra set later on, he has really gone for it. As driver that's given me a little bit of a scare, Troy Daggett in the middle of the field in 15th position, blinked for about half the lap, but has come back. Got to be careful of that. Lake Peterson into pit road for our leader, and he's one of the first ones besides Stabnow to come in. This is a very interesting call for the 09.
Peterson, he's so fast he could pretty much pit whenever he really wanted to. As long as he's perfect on pit road, he'll re-inherit the race lead. Stabnow on pit road, but deep in the field, a bunch of drivers making the left turn on the pit road. Lowther, Daggett, Smith, among several coming down pit road.
Yeah, I'm going to be keeping my eye on the 00. Will he use his fast repair on this pit stop? You'd imagine that he would want to, just to make sure that that car is set and ready to go, but it looks like that of Kevin Smith decides not to use his fast repair here. A gutsy call. I bet you'd imagine feeling like he hasn't lost too much time, just feeling like, hey, let's see what this fresh rubber's got this stint. If we really need to use our fast repair later on, we've got it.
Dennis Moore comes down from the race lead. He had just gotten lead from Stephen O'Hare on that lap, bringing Sherwinski, Chris White, Devin West with him. Another driver, Ryan Bloom, coming down pit road. So 7 of the top 8 come down pit road. The only drivers that stayed out there that turn were Stephen O'Hare and Tyler King, the teammates to Dennis Moore. So they might be trying a couple different things here. O'Hare and King. Right now, Beaver State Racing 1-2 is field on pit road.
Yeah, still looking at some of the drivers. Who's going to use their fast repairs this stint? We already know that Dan West Jr. used a fast repair, but he is still climbing for the 55 to make sure that he is the first car 1 lap down. Devin West still trying to get service done. Also, for note, who is going to make a mental error of coming down speeding? You don't want to get caught speeding here. That is a lot of time to lose, especially with the field being so spread out. A caution is not looking likely.
As they try to just click their way through. Still staying out right now, O'Hare and King. Last year, taking a look at how this race went, there were 6 cautions in this 80-lap race last year. Here we are, closing in. We're about 10 laps from halfway. 0 on the board thus far in that category. Looks like about 6 drivers have left not come down pit road. Ottenbacher on pit road now in the 89. Someone else coming down pit road. Believe that was Aaron Cooper. No. Trying to figure out who the other car on pit road is. But Ottenbacher pits from 5th. So that leaves us with, I believe, 4 cars left that have yet to come down. Corey Walters in number 9. He's leaving pit road.
Yeah, Corey Walters was that other driver that you were trying to figure out. And looking at the field, we've got 6 drivers still to pit. You got Briar Reynolds, who is ridiculously, I mean, you look at the numbers, Lake Peterson and Sean Breitzman, when they pitted, they did not lose their positions to Reynolds. Reynolds, I don't know why the 12's still out there, but he is trying something gutsy. And then our top 5, that of O'Hare, King, Wakefield, Paulison, as well as Cooper, still out there, and none of them showing signs of coming into pit road.
I'm especially wondering the leaders right now, O'Hare and King. We're working lap 31 right now. About 10 laps from halfway. Again, only 6 cars left that have yet to come down pit road. O'Hare and King. The only 2 drivers left up at the front. 10 seconds back to Judd Wakefield, who still has yet to come down. Paulison, Cooper, and Reynolds still staying out there.
Yeah, I mean,
stay out in their lap.
The only reason I could imagine that they're staying out is banking on a caution to come out. That is the only reason you'd stay out this long. You are just gifting time to Breitzman and Peterson to just continue to pull away from the gap that they already are gaining on you for staying out for this long. And that's one of the issues of drivers staying out, is you are losing ground that you are going to have to figure out how to make up once you come in and get fresh tires.
Everyone else stayed out with the exception of Briar Reynolds, who's coming off of turn number 3, and it does not look like he has any intention of coming down either. They will continue to stay out. Gutsy calls by everyone to stay out here this long.
Extremely gutsy, but hey, I mean, you talked about the fact that Sean Breitzman, he's willing to be off sequence and try something different. He started off our drivers of doing an undercut, which it worked out for a lap or 2, but then Lake Peterson was able to take that position back and trying to extend that lead once more. And for our other drivers, it's extended as long as possible, so that last pit stop it's a little bit shorter. You don't have to worry about saving your tires, and you can just be aggressive at the end to try to run down the 0-9.
Everyone stays out once again, and here's my question here, Sam. Lake Peterson is 3 seconds back of the top 5 right now. Aaron Cooper, the first of those 5 cars that have yet to pit. So how long do you want to risk it before you just get straight up run down by Peterson? He's shaving off about 2 seconds a lap.
Yeah, I mean, for these drivers, it's incredible that they're still running out there. I'm still questioning on why they are staying out as long as they are. But sometimes you just got to try something extremely different. Like I said, they're banking on a caution. So these drivers out here are going to be staying out as long as possible, which I believe they can go for another lap or 2 before they are forced to come into pit road because of fuel reasons. But you can kind of sense that they're trying to save fuel at this point to possibly stretch it out to. I mean, that's the only thing I can think about is maybe the drivers are trying to stretch it out to get to the halfway marker to try to cut away a complete pit stop from, which that would be massive. But Lake Peterson, I think that he could catch up to these guys even with that goal of trying to cut a full pit stop out.
That or trying to catch a caution and get yourself set back on the same sequence as everybody with one extra set of tires to the good. That might be what they're thinking also, because at this point, they would have to come back in again, use another at least fuel stop to get yourself back on sequence with the rest of them, or you run the risk of these guys on the fresher tires just slicing and dicing through the field. Again, the leaders stay out.
Yeah, at this point, their goal is probably to make it to halfway. Right now, from what the last lap was to their best lap, a total of 3 seconds is the difference. And looking at the leaders' times and their lap times compared to Lake Peterson, it's about 2 seconds of difference. Lake Peterson's coming with a head of steam. He's now under 19 seconds, soon to be under 17 after this lap.
Just still hanging back there. Peterson has caught Cooper, as has Brightsman. Peterson back into the top 5. If you're O'Hare, if you're King, you've got to start thinking about coming in, and it looks like they are able to draft a little bit. That's helping them, but I think O'Hare has gone into save mode just to try to get back to pit road because he has really backed off the throttle here. I think if you don't see him this time, they run risk of running out of fuel. Like you said, they're not coming. They're staying out once again.
No, they're cutting this thing in half. Their goal is to get to lap 41. If they can get to lap 41, they know they can stretch it all the way to that point. And the driver, they got to keep their eyes on. If Lake Peterson somehow closes in the gap, there is a shot that Lake Peterson, because both drivers, if they can get halfway, it is one pit stop for both teams. Ooh, this is going to get real mixy, and that's the big thing about these larger tracks is fuel mileage, always a factor if we stay green.
And we have done that thus far, a vast contrast to what this race was last year. And there's still, Sam, 21 cars on the lead lap, and Dan West Jr., he's still about 3 seconds away from even being in the lucky dog position right now. This entire race is not unfolding the way anyone predicted right now.
No, absolutely not. And then the trouble for Dan West Jr. is everyone else is kind of setting up for one more pit stop, but I believe the 55 still needs to make 2 pit stops, which is going to be absolutely frustrating for the 55 on the timing that he had to come into pit road after contact between himself and the 00 of Kevin Smith, which Smith, our pole sitter, currently in 15th, about to be passed by Troy Daggett. As that damage, he did not take the faster pair, and so the 00 looking like he is still losing even more ground. I would have liked him to take the faster pair, but I also understand you want to keep that safety net just in case you get caught up in some wreck later on.
I'm still scratching my head on that with Kevin Smith because he had lost so much ground after hitting the wall. I'm still kind of scratching my head that he would be willing to sacrifice even more. It's becoming clear this is going to be a race of long green flag runs. We're 3 laps from halfway. We haven't seen a caution yet. I'm just very surprised he didn't, because he risks losing even more ground and digging himself into an insurmountable hole by the end of it, by the time he finally takes the fast repair.
Well, looking right now, Judd Wakefield, Stephen Paulson, those guys are working together. They're running at about a full second off of what our front 2 are running. And, they're running off pace, trying to utilize the draft to their fullest potential. But Lake Peterson, he is now 12 seconds back from our front 2. He's coming with a head of steam, and we're just a couple of laps away from halfway, where 4 drivers are trying to stretch this thing out to make it a one-stop race, while the rest of the field kind of assumed everyone was going to turn this into a 2-stopper.
Turning the race on its lid. That's what I love about these big tracks. We talked about it a moment ago. It just changes up the strategy and make these guys think on their feet. We're used to seeing Brightsman be the one to try something like that. And Sam, that he is just sitting in here logging that information that these guys are able to go as long as they can. Brightsman's going to do that this run.
No, absolutely. I mean, this is such important information for them to be logging in for themselves. And also that could be information for Dan West Jr. on the fact when he makes his pit stop. If he can save enough, he won't have to make another pit stop for himself. More drivers, though, have parked it, as Casey Tillman, who was a part of a very odd wreck in the first 3 laps, had to come in, take service for the 92. Looks like was involved in another incident, deciding to park it for the night. And also Carl Burke, who started the race under a very odd circumstance of missing the grid and being 12 laps down once going. It's going to finish in 25th for the 53.
Coming up, going to be halfway next time by for our leaders. Now, here's a question I have for you, Sam. Are they going to go to this lap, or are they going to take that halfway mark, then come down?
I mean, I believe they're going to have to. They probably, if they can make it around this time by, they should be good, because it will be the start of lap 41. And even with a large enough lead, they should be able to coast it, which props to that of O'Hare and King on the fact that they even thought about trying this strategy out, because with this strategy of staying out this much, Blake Peterson never even got close to them. He's about 8 seconds back from that of O'Hare, and they're coming in.
All right, so coming to the halfway mark, Blake Peterson will take the lead back, and he will lead the lap. However, look who's in front of Peterson. Now Dan West Jr. is on the lead lap again here, Sam. So this is also going to help West Jr. get himself back into the mix of things if he can catch a caution.
Making slight mistakes. O'Hare sliding through his box. Shouldn't be hurting him too much on worrying about Peterson and if he can somehow stretch this out to work. But gosh, this changes a lot for these drivers, because could Peterson just he doesn't have the draft to try to help himself out here, but after seeing what those other drivers did, could he think about backing down his speed and trying to stretch it out?
We'll see. There's Brightsman in the 46 in second place. You know he's going to be thinking about differing strategies. 5.3 back. So once it's all said and done, it's back to about the same margin that it was before the drop of pit stops. But we're almost to the point where Brightsman went on that first run. We're only 4 laps away from matching Brightsman's run there.
Yeah, I mean, for Brightsman, he's going to have to pit here in the next 8 laps. That's when, if he's going to be trying the same strategy. But, I mean, this is now putting a lot of pressure on these drivers of when do they want to make their potential last stop. Because for Peterson, he might have to think about undercutting this to try to have enough time to catch up to the drivers that have kind of made their final stop of that of O'Hare and King. And the difference between O'Hare and King is they are still attached to one another, recognizing, hey, we need to utilize the draft, follow the drivers in front of us, try to save as much fuel as possible before using our tires to make the passes. That is going to be the biggest thing, and O'Hare is in the best spot. He's following behind King, saving fuel by utilizing the draft.
Notice that they've switched, because on that entire run to the pits, King was the one behind O'Hare. Now the roles have switched. So, will we see them switch again, or are they just going to be inclined to just ride here for the time being? The 11 of Frank Harris has hit the wall.
Getting loose out of turn 3 for Frank Harris. Looked like he was also coming into pit road, locked up his tires. We'll see it here on our Pulse Poppers instant replay. And a driver that was almost collected into that. Oh my goodness, some drivers coming into pit road. Frank Harris, as well as Brian Reynolds, making his final pit stop. As you'll see from the 11 coming through turn 3, Frank Harris, like he's trying to come into pit road and locks up the tires, gets out of control and into the pit box. And you'll see the 12 coming into the picture after the contact. Just sneaks in.
What a move by Brian Reynolds to get through that.
Reynolds was the car that stretched it out the furthest. So he's going to have to try to make some time up. But, man, for Frank Harris, he certainly had a major wreck and also made a lot of mistakes getting into his pit box. But because of that mix-up, it actually threw off Brian Reynolds, who I believe might have got caught speeding as he's still getting service done.
And he is just loaded up on the trailer. Brian Reynolds will call the night and be credited with a 23rd place finish here.
Reynolds was trying the same call that O'Hare and King had, but really you can't start off on the back foot and try the strategy that O'Hare and King are doing, because you need to be close enough to the leader to where even when they pit multiple times, they cannot catch up to you. Blake Peterson, he is still on cruise control, up 6.5 seconds over Bridesman, and not surprised by that major difference. But Bridesman's going to be in a lot of pressure because he's got Dennis Moore and Stab now just on his back bumper.
About half a second back to Moore from Bridesman, but then Stabnow's a little bit further back, just kind of hanging out here. Always talk about the possum here, the 24. Is he doing it once again? Meanwhile, how about Chris White in the number 83? He has crept his way up from 16th to now he's just cracked the top 5. Nice run for White.
Oh, absolutely. Incredible for White. White is staying patient, saving those tires. That first stint, he really was trying to come up and just not try to get in anyone's way and running his own race. But Kevin White, he just made, I believe, an unscheduled stop. He came into pit road, got service done, got tires. He might be thinking about stretching it to the end, thinking maybe this is a call that could help out the 00. But it's not like he's trying to, save an extra pit stop over the rest of the field. He's kind of on the same stint as everyone else.
Just past halfway, Moore gets around Bridesman for second. Not at all surprised to see that either, Sam, because we talked about it. You knew Bridesman was going to be saving. He saw what the Beaver State guys were able to do there. He says, I can do that easily. So you know he's going to fall in line. Now he's tucked up behind Dennis Moore. He's going to be able to draft a little bit. That's going to help him as well.
It might be thinking about trying to save as much time as possible here for these guys, but man, it has been a long race. We're past halfway, and it has been a fun one. Different strategy calls. We'll see if King, as well as O'Hare, if their strategy is going to be working out for themselves, or will Lake Peterson be able to run them down? But it is going to be a fun one. Greg, I mean, anything else that you think that these guys can do to try to run down the 41 or the 21?
They're going to have to be smart about how they play their game. Well, we're about just over 30 laps away from figuring out how this one ends. We'll take a little bit of a break to rest our voices for the finish and see what happens coming up here. The conclusion of tonight's race at Pocono. You're watching the Northwest Cup Series presented by Tom Dental Auto Group live on LSRTV, your home for sim racing.
Every customer, every single time, needs to get our very best. From moment one, my goal managing a team here in the dealership is to make sure that that customer's experience is the very best that they've ever had. We expect and demand total transparency. There should never be a time in that transaction where the customer is wondering or not quite sure of what they're buying or what they're paying or those sorts of things. And having that transparency and doing things the right way is super important.
Welcome back to Pocono. 30 laps to go here at Pocono. Blake Peterson leads the way over Dennis Moore and Sean Brightsman. However, the big story, Sam, we've been watching it. The teammates to Dennis Moore, the Beaver State boys, Tyler King and Stephen O'Hare, who, by the way, they're also not shying away from making moves. They have cracked the top 10 now as they try to make their way up through the field. We know they can go the rest of the way because they managed to do it. Question is, can they, and will the strategy work out?
Yeah, I mean, for both that of O'Hare and King, I mean, they're making the moves now because they've got the freshest tires of the whole entire field by over 13 laps. So they can really gain a lot of ground and be aggressive here, understanding, hey, they need to have a big enough lead to not let Peterson catch up to them on Peterson's last pit stop. And currently the difference between King and our leader is 23.4 seconds. Question is that going to be a big enough lead to hold off the 09 that we're expecting to come into pit road here in the next 7 laps or so, which already have had a couple of drivers coming to pit road. That of Dan West Jr. coming in this fast lap, as well as Devin West coming in extreme undercuts for themselves, trying to gain as many positions as possible and hope that they can hold off. Driver that has not come into pit road on the same stint as his first run, that's Sean Brightsman, who's staying out an extra couple of laps, trying to stretch out this stint, possibly out to lap 60.
Well, Brightsman went to school with the Beaver State boys. He saw what they were doing, and he said, okay, I'm going to try this run to set myself up. Here's the thing. Brightsman is known for stuff like that. He has won so many races in the series doing just that. There's a reason Sean Brightsman is the all-time leader in wins in Northwest Racing Series competition. It's because he's willing to study his opponents, learn what they do, and do it better than them. That is how he's won so many races. He's trying another case of it tonight by studying what the Beaver State boys did. Now, the question is, can he execute?
And you're seeing the 00 Kevin Smith, our pole sitter. He actually came into pit road about 6-7 laps ago, trying to get service done early, and was trying to get ahead of the curve on all the other drivers around him, was losing ground because he never took the fast repair. He took it this time, and now trying to gain all that time back by undoing an extreme undercut. But I don't see that really working as well. Stab now into pit road.
So Stab now comes down pit road for what we believe to be his final stop. Remember, all these guys will still have a set of tires on pit road in the case of the dreaded LRC, which we've seen before. So question is, Sam, will it happen once again? Stab now on pit road with about 28 laps to go.
That shall not be named, I see. I understand those moments of trying not to jinx anyone, but Blake Peterson now into pit road, making his final pit stop. Driver's got to make sure not to get caught speeding, and actually coming in a little gingerly was the 09 into pit road.
So that's the race leader. Blake Peterson coming down pit road gives the lead to Sean Brightsman. Now we will have a clear view of what Brightsman can do here. Peterson on pit road into pit stall number 2. Another driver coming down. That's Chris White. No, Dennis Moore behind him in the 44. Terwinski pits on pit road. So with 27 to go, Brightsman leads the way. Sam, it's on now because all eyes turn to the 46.
Yeah, and now it's time to crunch the numbers. Where is the difference between that of Lake Peterson as well to that of King and O'Hare? The biggest difference, though, for Peterson is that the tire difference isn't as large as it was when he first came into pit road. He was gaining time a lot on those drivers. He was about 2 to 3 seconds each lap. But the tire wear difference was about 25, almost 30 laps was the difference. Now it's going to be a lot more of a different call here. How much time is going to be gained? And it looks like the difference, a little under 20 seconds is the difference that needs to be gained by the 09 if he wants to win this race. Or will it be a heist by that of Tyler King and O'Hare, who tried to cut the pit stop away, which usually if you're able to do that, it works out for you to win the race.
Tyler King in the number 21, remember, is still looking for that first career victory in Northwest Racing Series competition. O'Hare, he's won truck races, never a cup race. So multiple things to figure out here in the closing stages.
And one of the things also to look out for, I think, Greg, you have that information of what the point standings might be looking like for both those drivers on which teammate really needs the win coming out of today's race. And really, King, I know he's shown some speed. O'Hare as well, showing speed at other courses. But who is in the more need of possibly getting more points and a win to get themselves into the playoffs?
That would be Tyler King, hands down. Stephen O'Hare is sitting in 10th right now, in a playoff position, but could use a little bit of a buffer. Tyler King is 16th on the outside looking in. He needs a win here to try to get himself into the playoffs below that cut line. So King definitely is the one that needs the win more over Stephen O'Hare. And not just that, he's also, like we said, looking for his first ever win in the series. So no doubt he wants to get that monkey off his back. He's been so close so many times, so many great runs out of this camp for King, O'Hare, Dennis Moore. They've all shown electric speed in these cars. However, the racer's luck just has not been there.
Oh boy, O'Hare and King, they're going to have to get a little nervous here, because at one point the difference was a little bit under 20 seconds. It's now under 17 seconds as Peterson to O'Hare, and it is now a straight dash for Peterson, who now understands that drivers in front of him are the guys that he needs to pass to win this race.
Peterson charging through the field, 27 seconds back. We saw what he was able to do on that run, able to get back up into the third spot. The question is, though, what can he do? Because King and O'Hare are drafting right now. They're setting themselves up to go to the green all the way to the finish. Breitzman, he saw what they did. Here's the problem, though. Breitzman doesn't really have any drafting help, where King and O'Hare were able to draft with each other. That's the main difference I'm seeing right now in the top three.
And Breitzman just can't stretch it far enough. I mean, even if he tries to go for 42 laps on a stint, he is going to be 10 laps short. It is just not possible for the 46 to stretch it far enough. His goal probably right now is to get to lap 60, have a shorter stint of not giving a care about the tire wears and how to conserve his tires. It's all about how to get a mad dash to gain as many points as possible and positions-wise. But Breitzman, he's the last driver we're waiting on to make the final pit stop. Everyone else, they should be good to make it to the end.
Coming through turn number 3, there will be 22 laps to go at the line. The gap, 11 seconds. We know Breitzman's got to pit one more time, but he is going to stretch it as long as he can to try to set himself up for a run to the finish. Dennis Moore and Devin West right now, the battle for 5th. They're about a second apart right now. Two drivers who've done a nice job staying out of trouble for the most part. So, as things begin to get to closing stages here, Sam, What are you expecting from second and third? Do you expect them to kind of back it down right now, just draft as long as they can, or when do you think they're going to start making their move and hammer down to the finish?
At some point, they're going to have to switch who's leading this group. King's been leading it for quite a while. I don't think drafting-wise, him leading, he's not saving any fuel. He is all go. I think at some point, probably in the next 2 laps, make a switch. You've ran halfway through this stint with the 21 leading of King. Make that swap. Make sure it is a clean swap, because I'm doing the math and it just does not add up for O'Hare or for King to win this race. Lake Peterson is coming with a head of steam, and they're hoping that maybe the tires will equal out. It will plateau where both will be on equal footing. But currently, Lake Peterson's running about a 1.5 seconds faster. And in the past 5 laps, he went from being 20 seconds back to now almost just 10 seconds back. The lead and the gap just was not big enough.
So it has definitely begun to shake up here. Dan West Jr., the 55, still a lap down in 20th. Troy Daggett, 17th, the last car on the lead lap. Corey Walters currently in the lucky dog spot if it comes down to that LRC. We're coming to 20 to go this time by. We'll stay here until Brightsman makes his final pit stop. Then we'll take one last break to thank Tom Denchel Auto Group one more time for their great support of the series, and then we're going to break into the finish as soon as Brightsman takes that final step onto pit road.
Oh my goodness, I thought maybe there'd be a chance, but you know, some of these drivers like Lake Peterson, like Bridesman, they just, when they're up front, they're leading these races, they understand the scenarios that some of the other drivers are in. And I think for O'Hare and King, they were banking on the fact that Peterson was going to push it as far as he could go out to lap 60, lap 65, make the lead as large as possible, so it wasn't possible for, even with fresh tires, to gain up to the 41 and the 21. But because of the understanding, okay, of Beaver State, they went into pit road. It's time for me to come in now. Just a couple of laps later, I'm inside the window of making it. I'm going to have plenty of time to catch up to them. It's now less than 8 seconds, the difference between that of second and third, back to 4th place.
It's going to be so interesting to watch. 3 very, very different strategies all unfolding right before us here on LSRTV. This will make, I believe, 38 laps for Brightsman this time by.
I mean, and starting of lap 37, going to be 38. Know that we saw King and O'Hare go about 41, 40 laps. So right now we know that the 46 is coming up to time to come pit road, and it's this time. He's coming in now. Sean Bridesman, he did everything in his power to try to stay out as long as possible, and I think the gap might be a little bit too large for himself to try to catch up to Peterson, but he's going to have 8-lap fresher tires than the 09. We'll see what Sean's got to try to run down our front runners as well.
So here we go. With him on pit road, this is going to change the entire complex of this race now. They've made it 63 laps. Brightsman on pit road, looking for no mistakes. He will roll out, and looks like it'll be A-okay. So, we believe that everyone has made their final pit stop. Now, what can Brightsman do? We'll see what the gap is when they come by. Tyler King is going to inherit the race lead. Off of turn number 3, he will cross the stripe now. Where is Brightsman? Brightsman coming up on the tunnel turn right now. We'll see what the gap is. And I think it might be too much to overcome here in just 18 laps.
Yeah, I mean, for that of Lake Peterson, when he came out of pit road, he was a little bit under 20 seconds away from that of King and O'Hare. When Bryceman came out of pit road, he was about 32, and he got penalized. Penalty coming out of that pit exit. Oh no! It went from a chance to try to run down to get a top 5 finish. So will he even get a top 15 finish for the 46?
Oh, it's going to be a dagger in it all. So much anticipation built. And Brightsman's going to come on the pit road. He's pulling into his pit stall.
Yeah, he's going to be held here for about 15 seconds. And, just a stop and go.
What a heartbreak. So, now it boils down to Peterson and the Beaver State boys. By the way, that gap is 4.3 seconds. We'll take a quick break to thank our sponsor, Tom Dental Group. When we come back, the finish between King, O'Hare, and Peterson. You're watching the Northwest Cup Series live on LSRTV, your home for sim racing.
Every customer, every single time, needs to get our very best. From moment one, my goal managing a team here in the dealership is to make sure that that customer's experience is the very best that they've ever had. We expect and demand total transparency. There should never be a time in that transaction where the customer is wondering or not quite sure of what they're buying or what they're paying or those sorts of things. And having that transparency and doing things the right way is super important.
You see the leaders going into turn 1, and that little black blip behind them was Lake Peterson reeling them in. Here comes O'Hare to the bottom. Oh, King shuts the door a little bit. There's Peterson back there. The black and yellow, number 09 right there. He is third, trying to track him down on much fresher tires than them. However, does he have to pit one more time? How much left in the tank do King and O'Hare have? Being able to draft like this, they've been able to save it. Thought they were going to make that switch that my cohort Sam was talking about a moment ago, but not yet. King continues to lead. Going down into turn number 1 right now. Sam Dyer will be right back with us. The gap 2.3 seconds between King and O'Hare. Dennis Moore in 4th. Kind of out of it right now. 14 laps to go. King, O'Hare, your top 2. What does Beaver State Racing have left in the tank? O'Hare sizes him up for a run. Just trying to draft with him right now, but they see that 09 getting bigger and bigger in the mirror. As a matter of fact, let's see if we can go on board. Looking out the back of that number 41 of O'Hare. See if we can go on the back bumper, perhaps looking out the back window of Stephen O'Hare. Because there you see the black and yellow machine of Lake Peterson getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The Jaws music is playing. However, how much did the Beaver State boys change? It's the Beaver State Bees versus the Beaver State boys. Oregon, 1, 2, 3 right now, and Peterson, he has caught up to them. Do they have enough left to fend them off? .3 seconds at the line. A 4th driver from Oregon is in 4th. Dennis Moore, the teammate to King and O'Hare. Here we go. Peterson has caught O'Hare and King. Sizes them up for the draft. King and O'Hare, they have to hit the punch button now. They've got to go full throttle for the rest of the race. 12 laps to go. Peterson to the inside for 2nd. He gets the nose in front off of turn number 1. Not clear, not clear, not clear. O'Hare fights back on the outside. Into the tunnel turn they go. Model after Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Big run. Notice how King went up to pick up the draft from his teammate. But again, Peterson has the preferred lane on the bottom. Drag race again down the backstretch. Peterson might have the preferred lane here as King had to go. He had to stand on the loud pedal. This could give the advantage to Peterson off of turn number 3. 11 laps to go at the line. O'Hare will have second at the line this time. You see the 41 beginning to stretch it, and Peterson's going to fall in line behind him. Peterson going to have to fall in line to set up another shot, and what that does is allow him to get right back to King. Here he comes again into turn number 1. Gets again the nose in front. Clear off of turn number 1. What a move by Peterson to take over second place. Now he's going to size up Tyler King. Coming to 10 laps to go. And does Peterson have enough juice in the tires, or did he use them up too much? He's going to take the lead away from King. The question is, how much did he use up the tires? You know he's good to go on fuel, but how much did he use up the tires? And right back to what he was doing when he led the race earlier. Cut the draft off of King and O'Hare. King and O'Hare trying to size up. Peterson, King, O'Hare, top 3. 3.4 back to Dennis Moore. He's also beginning to chip into this. Dennis Moore might not be done with this just yet. He might have a shot at finishing this run off with the podium. Oregon 1, 2, 3, 4. Chris White, a very impressive top 5 run. Before you find another Oregon driver, Noah Sherwinski. Peterson leads. King, O'Hare, and the gap is beginning to grow. 0.6 seconds now for Tyler King to try to get back up to Lake Peterson.
Still great racing action up front. The question is, for the Beaver State boys, will they be able to hold off that of Dennis Moore, who's now the next hard charger with just that of 9 laps left? Certainly a shot for the 44 to get up into the podium position.
Trying to close in. Coming around, 8 laps to go for Lake Peterson. He has been far and away the fastest car. However, trying to seal the deal. O'Hare inside of Tyler King for second. He got him. Move O'Hare to second. They finally make that switch you were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it came a little bit later than I thought it was going to happen. I thought for sure they should have done it sooner just to help King to make sure he could make it, because they got to make sure to save two laps to make sure that 21 can make it. So that's 5 miles. They're going to hope that they can save here for 8 laps. The rest of the field, some of those other drivers that are on similar stints of O'Hare and King, I'm wondering if they're going to be close. That of Paulison, I wonder if he's got any help with the drivers that have been passing him, if he's been able to save enough fuel. Chad Wakefield, who's second to last car left on the lead lap. He's also another driver that hasn't had that much help, but he's been so off the pace that I think that's how he's going to save fuel for himself. Yeah, I think the biggest question now is, where will Dennis Moore fall when we get to the end of this race? Will it be 3rd? Will it be 2nd? Because we know the 44 is going to catch him, as he got 3 cars in line. Lap car, that is 55 of Dan West Jr. First car, 1 lap down, hoping for a caution to get the lucky duck spot. Gosh, well, a late caution, how that would change things.
King with a big run on O'Hare. trying to stick with the draft. And here's the thing, even with them drafting like that, they're not able to gain any ground on Peterson because he's cutting the draft and showing just how strong that 09 car is just by itself.
As right now, still a lot of low sun. You know, you've got different battles that are going on. You've got the potential pass of Moore making the pass for second and third, and then also right now for seventh place, you've got Stabnow under pressure from Devin West. And that's a position that is right on top of one another. Devin West, he's on the older tires, but still trying to catch up and possibly make a pass here on the 24.
As they close in, this is the battle for seventh. Stabnow and West. Stabnow with a run on the outside. West on the inside. Coming to 5 laps to go.
Devin West confirming that pass and that move. And as we were watching that great action going side by side, Dennis Moore is now on the back bumper of Tyler King. And it's just closing moments of the race. It's when some of these drivers finally get close to one another to make passes, when those different tire or strategies finally come bubbling up to a chance to take those passes late with 5 laps to go.
Change for third. Dennis Moore has caught his teammates. King fights back on the outside. Beaver State Racing battling for the final 2 spots on the podium.
Dennis Moore got a great run out of 2, but just the strength of the outside, even with those older tires. We saw King willing to be aggressive, trying to hold off that of Lake Peterson earlier, but not able to do so for the 44. Dennis Moore up to third. As it's coming to 4 laps to go for these guys, the question looming is who will be able to, if O'Hare is going to be able to hold off Dennis Moore for that long. In my eyes, it's just not possible. As here comes the 44 to the inside.
Dennis Moore fighting on King. Gets past King. Now fighting on O'Hare. Drag race. For the sec spot, all going on behind Lake Peterson, who has opened it up 3.4 seconds last time by.
Yeah, and on similar tires is that of Dennis Moore and Peterson, and we just know once you get about 5 laps into a run, that 09 just has a different gear from everyone else. Dennis Moore now up to second place. What a run for this 44 team that is looking for that end of the race consistency for himself in the Cup Series. Been seeing consistency in the ARCA, and now it's starting to translate, just like how we've been seeing Kevin Smith qualifying runs coming in for the 00, and we're now starting to see that race pace come in for the 44.
Problem is, I think he came in just too late for Dennis Moore, and I think a couple of drivers were banking on some cautions here. We're coming to 2 laps to go, and Lake Peterson has led for about the last 10 laps, but led pretty much the entire first run of this race, looking for what will be his 5th win of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing, we got to see that difference of tire strategies and fuel strategies of O'Hare and King somehow turning this race into a 1-stop when Peterson made it a 2-stop race. And then also, you know, what's going to be looming over our heads is what if Sean Breitzman didn't get caught making the mistake coming out of pit road and getting that stop and go penalty? What would the 46, where would he be lying? Because he came out 10th. Could he have been moved up to the top 5 by the end of this race if that penalty never happened?
Be right up here in the mix, I would say. Getting caught up in that accident, receiving a penalty. It's going to cost him a finish outside the top 15, as they're going to come around through turn 3, the white flag will be displayed over Lake Peterson. The CRN 1 to go. Lake Peterson takes it.
3 corners. All that Lake Peterson has to do is just hit his marks, as the next driver in front of him is going to be that of Ryan Bloom. Bloom, he's running a little bit slower, but a big enough gap, about 3 seconds, is the difference between the 09 and the 25. So lap traffic shouldn't be a factor for Lake Peterson. Comes at turn 1 perfectly fine, down the drag strip of the back stretch to turn number 2, the tunnel turn. Lake Peterson has been lights out tonight. He had to run down that of O'Hare and King, but after he made the pass, it was just easy going for himself.
Peterson has been so strong all day long. And now, through turn 3, what turn 4? All I see is a checkered flag. 5th win of the season. Lake Peterson wins at Pocono.
I mean, what a race for this team. Lake Peterson, he just gapped himself so early on in the race when everyone else was challenging themselves to figure out where they were going to be placed. It's coming across the line, a drag race between O'Hare and King. That victor goes to O'Hare. 5th place will be that of Chris White. Rest of the field still moving around the corners, trying to finish out what position they're going to be in. But man, Lake Peterson, like you said, I mean, so many wins this season and just continues on to show how good he is week after week.
5th win of the season for Lake Peterson. Unbelievable performance by Peterson tonight. He's going to go celebrate. And Sam, while we key up our Sawblade.com unofficial results, you know what's coming next for these boys here on the front stretch. The Northwest High 5 coming up next. For the 5th time, Lake Peterson is going to burn it down on the front stretch.
Oh man, it's got to be feeling good for that 09, getting another win, getting to burn it down. He's got some practice doing some burnouts. I gets to burn him down just for a little bit before we get to see the Destruction Derby. But gosh, what a race these guys had. Props to Dennis Moore for coming through for that team to get a 2nd place finish after a great qualifying, top 5 qualifying time for himself. His teammates interlocking, and here comes the carnage.
Say hello to the Northwest High 5.
You know what the issue is? They're going after the teammate. They're missing the guy who won.
These guys missed everybody. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, they keep on going after Noah instead of Lake. Oh, no. Oh, there we go. Bloom finally got him.
As the fun continues on the front stretch, the boys having their fun after the race. Let's take a look at the Sawblade.com unofficial results from Pocono. Here, as it was Lake Peterson grabbing the win. Here, his 5th of the season. He holds off his fellow Oregon drivers Dennis Moore, Stephen O'Hare, and Tyler King. 2, 3, 4 for Beaver State Racing with Chris White in 5th. Noah Sharinsky, Devin West, Jeff Stabnow, James Thurston, John Ottenbacher round out your top 10.
In 11th, that's when we're going to be finding that of Dan Lowther as well as Stephen Paulson in 12th. With that, Sean Breisman going to be getting 13th with Troy Daggett, and that of Corey Walters in 15th. Interesting note, I was watching the battle between Walter and also that of Kevin Smith. Smith got caught with the penalty black flag late in this race. Instead of him finishing up in 16th, pushed him back to 18th. Then you also got Jed Wakefield in 16th, Ryan Bloom in 17th. That's where you find Kevin Smith in 18th. 19th, first car 1 lap down. That's going to be Dan West Jr. and Aaron Cooper in 20th.
Rounding out the field, drivers who unfortunately struggled on the day. Taylor Larson 1 lap down. He was the final car to finish the race. Frank Harris, Briar Reynolds, Casey Tillman, Carl Burke, Brian Maines, and James Vining all post DNFs. 27 cars took the green flag here tonight. When we come back, we'll top to the 3 that stood above them all. Post-race interviews with our podium coming up next here on LSRTV, your home for sim racing. Welcome back to Pocono, everybody, where a caution-free 80 laps here in the Northwest Cup Series presented by Tom Denchel Auto Group sees Lake Peterson pick up the win. Number 5 on the season for that number 09, but he had to contend with Beaver State Racing, who were trying all kinds of different strategies out there, and Stephen O'Hare led quite a bit right around the halfway point, comes home with the 3rd place. And Stephen, we were watching you there throughout most of the race, kept our eyes on you, noticed about 10 laps before you came down pitting that you were going to try to split it into half. Was that the plan from the get-go, or was that just kind of a let's see what happens?
We were open to a couple different strategies, but as we started the run, it seemed like we could turn it into a halfway race. So I think one of the benefits of having teammates, we ran 2 different strategies. And I guess it was all for naught. We ended up right next to each other, but we tried, I think, a few weeks ago, we had really fast trucks at Dover and all ran the same strategy, and it did us. So lesson learned. Pretty pleased with the cars tonight, and Dennis, as always, was fast. So I think we had decent strategy. We just were 3rd and 4th place drivers tonight.
So you mentioned there that it almost worked at Dover, but so 2 questions here. One, what made you decide to try it again here at Pocono? And 2, this race had 6 cautions last year, none today. Did the shortage of cautions play a role in that, or was that something you took into consideration, that it may be a low caution to even a no caution race?
As the race progressed in the beginning, it was a great race. I think somebody's commenting on the side drafting. It was a lot of fun. You could get runs, and it just seemed like everybody was racing pretty respectful, at least towards the front there. So felt good about it, but you never know when those late race cautions are going to pop up. And as our strategy was playing out, it seemed like we were able to maintain, at least towards the end, decent track position. So if that caution did fly, I don't think we would have been too bad off. There was like 2-second drop off on the runs, so I think we all would have been equal there.
So another week off after this one tonight for 4th of July. Boom confetti coming up here next week. However, July 12th, we're back in action at the brand new 2i Racing, but recently resurrected Nashville Super Speedway for the first time in Cup Series history, Northwest Racing Series history. The first time they'll race at the 1.2-mile concrete D Oval, a track we've never been to, and a track unlike any other. What's your thoughts heading into the Super Speedway in Nashville, Tennessee in 2 weeks?
I feel pretty good about it. I think ran a couple races on the service, so got some laps there. I think the track itself lends to some of our driving styles, but it's always hard to tell. The Northwest Racing Series guys are super competitive, so you really don't know how you're going to stack up until you get into some practice sessions.
All right, well, we'll see you 2 weeks from now in Nashville. Stephen, a top 3 for you means you get to thank the guys that make it possible for you. Who got you here in the number 41?
Yes. Certainly Beaver State Racing, Dennis, Tyler, great teammates. I think that was a great race for us. And then American Touch-Up Paints, find them on Amazon. Do great custom colors if you're looking for anything. Nicole Brand Photography for allowing me the time to come out here and race with everybody. And Peels for stepping on board and helping offset some of the costs for us.
3rd place, Stephen O'Hare. We'll see you in Nashville.
Awesome. Thank you guys very much.
And I believe that Sam Dyer has come down to catch up with 2nd place, who charged through the field to get that 2nd place, getting past his 2 teammates. Sam Dyer has caught up with Dennis Moore.
Yeah, Dennis Moore, it's Sam leading the Beaver State guys here tonight with the 2nd place finish. Dennis, you qualified in 5th. Did you have a 2nd place finish on your radar at all tonight?
I thought I had some speed, and especially on a long run, like Lake said earlier. in the chat before we went on air. I'm good at saving tires. That's what I love to do. And I had a little more speed on the qualifying setup. I screwed up my second lap. That's why I ended up 5th place.
Yeah, and Dennis, note on the fact that you race also in the ARCA Series Friday nights. How much did that help you translate that speed to here tonight?
I actually missed the race last Friday, so the only laps I got were during a practice session last night. Probably ran about 40 laps and kind of figured it out. Then we had an extra long practice session today. I think James Vining or one of those guys put up, so thanks to one of those guys. And I really found some speed watching some of those guys line.
I mean, with missing and only coming and be only 3 corners, how much is it difficult trying to stay in a rhythm, even with how different each corner is?
Yeah, this track is super difficult. Every corner is important because of the long straightaways. You got to get off really well to keep your momentum up. You're using brake in every corner, so that's something I don't like to do. But yeah, it's just a very dynamic track.
Well, that's Dennis Moore showing that, even if you're staying on the same pace, he's still a different strategy than his teammates, but certainly came up just slightly short to that of Lake Peterson. Dennis, before we let you go, the floor is yours for any shout-outs.
I got to thank those guys at Beaver State Racing. It's a lot of fun racing those guys every week. Nicole Bryan Photography and Tom Denchel Auto Group for sponsoring the series.
That's Dennis Moore coming up 2nd place, and we'll send it to victory lane. Greg, you've got our leader.
And Lake Peterson, 5th time this season, you pick up a win. But, man, this one was all about the strategy game. A lot of drivers trying different stuff, but at the end of the day, you're able to chase them down, get past them, and then just pull away at the end. Tell us about the run.
Yeah, it was. I did not think that one-stop meet was going to be possible, and so last time we raced at when we raced at Kansas, I stayed out a little bit too long for the first pit stop, and it kind of bit me, and so I just tried to short pit as a little bit, not trying to undercut too much, but I just wanted to make sure that I didn't get stuck so far back that the tires would even out by the time I caught up to everyone. And when I saw that people were one-stopping, I was a little bit worried about my tires evening out before I was able to catch up. And thankfully, it worked out. I mean, it takes a little bit of luck to win these things. So, really cool.
So tell us about the planning process here, and we saw what the Beaver State guys did, but you guys were on a little bit of a different strategy there, just kind of pitting with the flow of the race with most of the other guys, not really getting yourself off sequence there. But tell us about the decision that you made to go for that strategy as opposed to trying something different like some of the other guys tried.
Yeah, well, we have Justin Yee, who hasn't been racing lately, but he's been doing a little bit of our strategy for us. He's been trying to figure out the optimal timing, I guess, of when to pit and when not to pit, how many stops you want to take, and yeah, he's pretty much doing all the number crunching, and he felt that by pitting at the laps we did, that gave us the best opportunity to finish up front. So, yeah, probably taking it a little bit more serious than some, but yeah, we were just trying to figure out the optimal time, so we just stuck with what we thought would work best.
Well, 2 road course races in a row, followed up by Pocono. Now a week off for 4th of July. Next, we head to the Nashville Super Speedway for the first time. So, what are your thoughts going into the 1.2-mile concrete oval here in a couple weeks?
I am very excited because we don't have a tapered spacer and we have no spoilers. So, it's actually going to take a driver behind the wheel, I guess you would say, even though it's virtual. But I feel like it takes a little bit more skill, and I appreciate when we go to low downforce, high horsepower tracks. I like being able to slip and slide and have the gas pedal do the driving.
All right, Nashville coming up in 2 weeks. Looking for a 6-pack of victories. Lake, you've gotten pretty good at this, but who got you here?
Yeah, I want to thank everyone at Skeet Fleet Enterprises, Jesse Newen, team owner, got Justin Nees doing the number crunching right now, and my teammate, Noah Sherwinski. He's been pretty vital to figuring out the best lines. We've been comparing our data with one another and just trying to get this stuff figured out each and every week. Want to thank Tom Gentile Auto Group, Sean, Jeff, all the other admins that keep this league going, and LSRTV. Really appreciate the high quality broadcast you bring to this league. I think it's something special that most leagues don't get the opportunity to have, so I appreciate it.
5th win of the season, Lake Peterson. Congratulations. Well, Sam, it was a fun one at Pocono. Caution-free, a lot of different strategy unfolding. A very, very fun race, but at the end, Lake Peterson comes out with it.
Yeah, I mean, just showing how he is so consistent this season. And, I mean, got to give credit to that whole entire team as a whole. Like Lake said, I mean, a lot of people coming together to help that team as a whole just be at the prime that they can be at. And it kind of makes you more scary. The more that they're getting tuned in and the more wins that you rack onto Lake's chart on what this team's going to look like once playoffs come around.
All right, we'll see what happens 2 weeks from now. Nashville Super Speedway coming up here as we take the 4th of July week off. So, for Sam Dyer here joining me in the Tower tonight and Charles Wooten in the production truck, I'm Greg Rentz. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. Lake Peterson gets his 5th win of the season. Congratulations going out to him. Enjoy the 4th of July holiday before our next Monday race, but we've still got a couple more races to go before then. S&B Cup Series Wednesday afternoon, and then the Northwest Truck Series right back here at Pocono. We'll see ya coming up on Wednesday night.